What is up, party people? It's Keys Dan with RadioWhat.com, DJLittleRock.com, coming to you live and in living color from the Radio What studio. And this is my podcast, What Makes You Famous. It's an extension of the RadioWhat.com internet radio station that I've been running for quite some time. And if you need DJ services, where do you go? DJLittleRock.com. Check availability and get a free price quote. And maybe you could have me. Oh yeah, I like to play for the people at your next event. You know, I like weddings and parties of all kinds. Video dance party karaoke jams have been what's going on lately. If you'd like to tell your story, I encourage you to check out my other podcast, What Makes You Famous. Find it everywhere using the hashtag What Makes You Famous. This episode, my fine friends, my name's Dan, Keys Dan. You can call me Dan. My mama calls me Dan. And speaking of mama, yes, I love you, mama. Got to say hi to the moms. Especially, she was instrumental in my upbringing. I went to Catholic school for the first 6 years of my school life. St. Monica Catholic School in Carroll City, Opelika, in the Miami area there. And I learned a lot there, and it was a good time. Catholic school was good. It was an integrated Catholic school, boys and girls. I think I remember one nun. She was the principal of the school, and I didn't have a lot of run-ins with her, so good on me. I was a pretty good kid in school. In fact, well, now I got to say it's the first 5 years of school because I did second and third grade in 1 year. So way back then, I was smart. I was a smart cookie. But now I feel like my head still has some space for knowledge. So when I was putting the categories together or trying to find what category this podcast would fill, I had to pick, I don't know, music. I'm really into music. Comedy. Yeah, I'm into comedy. I like people to laugh. So no. Okay. Education. That's where I feel this podcast needed to land. Education, because even the What Makes You Famous portions of the program where I get to have people tell their stories, where I invite you to tell your story, because everyone has a story of where they were, where they've been, and where they are now, and where they plan to go in the future. I want to know your story. You are famous to somebody and important to somebody. You're very important to me, in fact, because you have knowledge, and I want to know what you know. So you can impart that knowledge, not just to me, but also the listeners, potentially many listeners. I know the program is starting to pick up speed, and I'm very happy about that. It means you like what's happening here, and perhaps you just like the sound of my voice. I know I stutter a little bit. I stumble. I'm not the perfect speaker, and I have no need for editing, really, because it's true life. If you edit, it kind of falsifies things. So I'm not going to edit for the most part. I mean, if there's long spaces, I might cut those out, possibly. But for the most part, you get the real me. As I'm learning, you're learning with me. So come take this journey with me today. And I think, well, since it's Easter weekend, so let's learn a little bit more about the Easter holiday. Won't you take this journey with me? Come along. It's Keys Dan with RadioWhat.com and DJLittleRock.com, the What Makes You Smarter edition. Easter. Hello there, and happy Easter. Easter is a Christian holiday that celebrates the belief in the resurrection of Jesus Christ. In the New Testament of the Bible, the event is said to have occurred 3 days after Jesus was crucified by the Romans and died in roughly 30 AD. The holiday concludes the Passion of Christ,
a series of events and holidays that begin with Lent, a 40-day period of fasting, prayer, and sacrifice, and ends with Holy Week, which includes Holy Thursday, the celebration of Jesus' Last Supper with his 12 apostles, Good Friday, on which Jesus' crucifixion is observed, and Easter Sunday. Although a holiday of high religious significance in the Christian faith, many traditions associated with Easter date back to pre-Christian pagan times. Let's go over when is Easter. Easter 2019 occurs on Sunday, April 21st. However, Easter falls on a different date each year. Easter Sunday and related celebrations, such as Ash Wednesday and Palm Sunday, are considered movable feasts, although in Western Christianity, which follows the Gregorian calendar, Easter always falls on a Sunday between March 22nd and April 25th. In Eastern Orthodox Christianity, which adheres to the Julian calendar, Easter falls on a Sunday between April 4th and May 8th each year. In some denominations of Protestant Christianity, Easter Sunday marks the beginning of Eastertide, or the Easter season. Eastertide ends on the 50th day after Easter, which is known as Pentecost Sunday. In the Eastern Orthodox branches of Christianity, Easter Sunday serves as the start of the season of Pascha, Greek for Easter, which ends 40 days later with the holiday known as the Feast of the Ascension. Despite its significance as a Christian holy day, many of the traditions and symbols that play a key role in Easter observances actually have roots in pagan celebrations, particularly the pagan goddess Esther, or Ostera, the ancient Germanic goddess of spring, and the Jewish holiday of Passover. Let's go over the religious tradition of Easter. The resurrection of Jesus, as described in the New Testament of the Bible, is essentially the foundation upon which the Christian religions are built. Hence, Easter is a very significant date on the Christian calendar. According to the New Testament, Jesus was arrested by the Roman authorities, essentially because he claimed to be the Son of God. Although historians question this motive, with some saying that the Romans may have viewed him as a threat to the empire. He was sentenced to death by Pontius Pilate, the Roman prefect, in the province of Judea from 26 to 36 AD. Jesus' death by crucifixion, marked by the Christian holiday Good Friday, the Friday before Easter, and subsequent resurrection 3 days later, is said by the authors of the Gospels to prove that he was the living Son of God. In varying ways, all four of the Gospels in the New Testament, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, state that those who believe in Jesus' death and resurrection are given the gift of eternal life, meaning that those of faith will be welcomed into the kingdom of heaven upon their early death. Let's go over Passover and Easter. Notably, Easter is also associated with the Jewish holiday of Passover, as well as the exodus of the Jews from Egypt, as described in the Old Testament. These links are clearly seen in the Last Supper, which occurred the night before Jesus' arrest and the sufferings Jesus endured following his arrest. The Last Supper was essentially a Passover feast. However, the New Testament describes it as being given new significance by Jesus. He identified the matzah, or bread, he shared with his 12 apostles as his body, and the cup of wine they drank as his blood. These rituals would come to symbolize the sacrifice he was about to make in death, and became the basis for the Christian ritual of Holy Communion, which remains a fundamental part of Christian religious services. As Jesus' arrest and execution were said to have occurred during the Jewish observance of Passover, the Easter holiday is often close to the former celebration on the Judeo-Christian calendar. Let's go through some Easter traditions. In Western Christianity, including Roman Catholicism and Protestant denominations, the period prior to Easter holds a special significance. This period of fasting and penitence is called Lent. It begins on Ash Wednesday and lasts for 40 days, not including Sundays. This Sunday, immediately prior to Easter, is called Palm Sunday, and it commemorates Jesus' arrival in Jerusalem, when the followers laid palm leaves across the road to greet him. Many churches begin the Easter observance in the late hours of the day before Holy Saturday in a religious service called the Easter Vigil. In Eastern Orthodox Christianity, Easter rituals start with the Great Lent, which begins on Clean Monday, 40 days prior to Easter, not including Sundays. The last week of Great Lent is referred to as Palm Week, and it ends with Lazarus Saturday, the day before Palm Sunday. Palm Sunday marks the beginning of Holy Week, which ends on Easter. Now, here's one tradition that we can go through: Easter eggs. Irrespective of denomination, there are many Easter time traditions with roots that can be traced to non-tradition and even pagan, non-religious celebrations. Many non-Christians choose to observe those traditions while essentially ignoring the religious aspects of the celebration. Examples of non-religious Easter traditions include Easter eggs and related games such as egg rolling and egg decorating. It is believed that eggs represented fertility and birth in certain pagan traditions that predate Christianity. Egg decorating may have become part of the Easter celebration in a nod to the religious significance of Easter, for example, Jesus' resurrection or rebirth. Many people, mostly children, also participate in Easter egg hunts, in which decorated eggs are hidden. Well, look who just came hopping in the studio. The Easter Bunny. In some households, a character known as the Easter Bunny delivers candy and chocolate eggs to children on Easter Sunday morning. These candies often arrive in an Easter basket. The exact origins of the Easter Bunny tradition are unknown, although some historians believe it arrived in America with German immigrants in the 1700s. Rabbits are, in many cultures, known as enthusiastic procreators, so the arrival of baby bunnies in springtime meadows became associated with birth and renewal. Notably, several Protestant Christian denominations, including Lutherans and Quakers, have opted to formally abandon many Easter traditions, deeming them too pagan. However, many religious observers of Easter also include them in their celebrations. An Easter dinner of lamb also has historical roots, since a lamb was often used as a sacrificial animal in Jewish traditions, and lamb is frequently served during Passover. The phrase Lamb of God is sometimes used to refer to Jesus and the sacrificial nature of his death. Today, Easter is a commercial event as well as a religious holiday, marked by high sales for greeting cards, candies such as Peeps, chocolate eggs, and chocolate Easter bunnies, and other gifts. So what do you and your family do for Easter? I'd like to know. I'd like to know everything about you. So I learned a little bit more about Easter. I hope you did too. Thank you for listening to the sound of my voice on my podcast, What Makes You Smarter. If you'd like to tell your story on the What Makes You Famous podcast, give me a call at 501-470-6386 or drop me an email, info@radiowhat.com. Well, that was a short one. This is Keys Dan with RadioWhat.com, DJLittleRock.com. Thank you for listening to What Makes You Smarter. Peace. I'm out of here.
If you like what you hear, I encourage you to follow What Makes You Smarter on social media. Find it on Facebook at What Makes You Smarter, Instagram at What Makes You Smarter, Twitter at SmarterWhat, and YouTube, username Keys Dan. Leave What Makes You Smarter podcast a review and subscribe. Listen to What Makes You Smarter podcast on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, and Podcast Addict. My personal favorite, learn with me on my podcast, What Makes You Smarter. And if you'd like to tell your story, I encourage you to check out my other podcast, What Makes You Famous. Find it everywhere using the hashtag What Makes You Famous. Call 501-470-6386 and leave a message to set up a time for What Makes You Famous. Support What Makes You Smarter podcast using the PayPal, paypal.me/Keys Dan. Email info@radiowhat.com. What Makes You Smarter is a production of Keys Dan Enterprises Incorporated at keysdan.com. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening.